Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your host, Steve Ramona. I've got another international show today, but he's coming from the beautiful city of Dubai. We talked in the green room before that I need to go visit. So, wife, if you're listening, we're going to set up a trip to go to Dubai, and maybe I'll run into Sammar. It'd be great to do that. Sammar, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you.
You've been successful. You're young. You're going to be even more successful. You started from zero like everybody did. But I think it's important to be a servant leader. So in your eyes or your mind, what's the three best characteristics of a servant leader?
Right, that's a great question and a great position to start. Even just the thesis, a servant leader, let's deconstruct that first before we get into characteristics, right? So, a servant leader is someone who's there to serve others, not only obviously the company or the corporation, whoever they work for, but more at a deeper level is those human relationships, right? So you start to break down those characteristics as helping people along a journey, obviously to get a job done, but B, the second characteristic is to have that inner care, right? To understand and reflect upon whom you're working with and why you're working, right? To have that sense of connection. So this is what starts to distinguish simply someone who's doing a job or managing or leading people to actually being a servant. And thirdly, then a servant is there ultimately to help. There's a sense of humility in that term, right? So you're doing it with a sense of humbleness that those people you're working with are there to help all of us to achieve those goals. And it's not about giving orders necessarily as a master or servant, but in the truer sense of the word, perhaps in a biblical sense of the word, taking those steps with humility, understanding, and care. And that when you start to project that and people start to recognize that in you as a servant leader, these are the fundamental characteristics that people will therefore want to go the extra mile for you because they have trust in you. And that's implicit. Through your service, you have proven and demonstrated to them that it's not just about the work or the job or giving orders. It is also about establishing a connection and trust that goes all the way to their being, which is something they can then care about as much as you care about your work. They can also care about you and making sure that they get the best from you and from them.
You work with some large companies. That was so well said. Man, I got good notes here. And you work with big companies. You work with SAP today, which is a large company. How does the servant leadership fall into that? Because now you got hundreds of thousands of employees and different levels of directors, managers. How do you see that fit there in a company like that?
And so I'm proud to work for SAP, which, if anyone's not familiar, is the world's third largest software company, originally founded in Germany, specializes in computer software and cloud-based innovation, etc. But fundamentally, it's the values that stand apart for me. And I'd like to reflect a little bit, on my career. I've worked for large companies, and those companies that stood out with really sincere values are two of them. Firstly, SAP, whom I work with today, and the values, of course, have a lot to do with that, where there is a humility in the leadership, and very much they carry the philosophy forward of helping employees achieve their goals and helping everyone live better lives. There's a fundamental value of company and helping obviously our customers ultimately achieve their goals sustainably. So we take all of those things very seriously. And that's then baked into the culture of the company in terms of how employees are treated, how we engage with each other, the language that we use, etc. Right? This is a very, very important value, and I do really respect that. The other company, I think, really had very strong values that I really admired while I spent time there was Philips, Royal Dutch Philips. I'm sure we'll know it as a consumer electronics brand. I've just moved on since those days when I was there. But a company with over 100 years history, founded on Calvinist principles, based on the respect of the employees and the employer, where there was a deep care and affection for the employees. And just to give you an illustration, and I'm sure we have many other examples of industrial families like this, but the Philips family themselves, founded the company in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, built that entire town brick by brick. And I spent some time there, really amazed by how much effort and care the Philips family spent definitely in the early part of the 20th century investing in people and organizations and for the well-being of society. And that's carried forward in the values of the Philips Corporation. I felt very proud to work for such a caring and open organization. And you might have heard of PSV Eindhoven, which is a famous football team in Europe. PSV, as I like to tell people, stands for Philips Sporting Union. That was founded as the Employees Football Club, and that has grown into great things and still supported by the Philips family and the Philips company. So, there's two great examples of organizations that take that servant mentality to heart. It's not just about profit or exploiting people or labor. It's about delivering the best outcome for people and society as a whole.
Great for people to hear, because these are big companies. We all look at from a 30,000-foot view is like, oh, these companies are so big, they don't take care of their employees. That Philips story is fantastic. I love hearing that. So let's break that down. I love culture because I think that's a big part of a company. You've dealt with a lot of companies. If you look at a company's culture and have the understood it, what they were doing, could you tell if they were a successful or not so successful company by their culture?
No, I think this question has to be unpacked a little bit in the sense that, success has many different measures, of course, right? And you have top line, the bottom line, profit margin, etc., year-on-year growth, and all these things are important, of course. And ultimately, of course, we live in a capitalist society, and success does matter in that sense, right? A company has to be thriving and making money to take care of its employees, right? But that success comes with a certain balance and a certain care. So I have worked for companies, which I won't name necessarily, which I felt where the profit motive was maximized, perhaps wouldn't say they were uncaring of their employees, but this was perhaps a lesser motive, right? It is about profit. And that you can then sense very quickly that this is what matters to the company. It's not to say when you're inside working for them, they don't take care of you, they don't pay you on time, don't pay you well, or whatever it may be, right? But when it comes to the sense of the organization, what truly matters is there has to be a balance, right? A well-run organization must also make tough decisions and also must ensure that it is profitable to the extent that obviously it can make a return for its shareholders, its employees, and deliver the best for its customers. And these things all matter. But when the motive is maximized to say it's all about profit, and this, for me, becomes a little bit uncomfortable, right? It cannot be the only thing in the world to chase profit. And so I think that becomes apparent very quickly from the culture they're working in and how people around you behave. And are they chasing the quarter end only? Are they only concerned about their bonuses? Are they only concerned about the stock price? If these things are continually talked about at the top of the hour, every meeting, every day, it's not to say they're not important, of course. Please don't get me wrong. But where the culture seems to maximize those and make less effort around employee well-being and helping teams develop and people achieve their goals within the organization, when that balance is not struck, you can feel that absolutely. I think we all know what that feels like.
Yeah, money-driven culture in a business, and you broke it down very well. I'm glad you did, because success it's so general, like you said. It could be more employees, more whatever. But I like that idea, and that's good for employees too, right, Sammar? You work in a company, you feel it's a money-driven culture. You get that decision to stay or not. If you love it, you stay. For me, I wouldn't stay. Just my thoughts. But that would help an employee understand their company a little more too, right?
Yeah, of course. I think this is often implicit. I mean, frankly, if you read the mission statement of most companies, they're going to be fairly generic. And yes, we care about our employees and our environment and et cetera, et cetera. And you'll see the fairly standard boilerplate stuff around CSR, corporate social responsibility, and employee benefits, and so on. And frankly, every organization these days of a certain scale is going to have those sorts of commitments, and that's just par for the course, right? That's the entry to the club. But you expect people to do that. But what they say and what people do obviously varies, right? As much in our personal lives as much as in corporate life, and this very much is judgment that one has to make based on your own values. So if the organization is pursuing a type of business or particular type of approach to business, which doesn't resonate with your own values, this is something that obviously you would have discomfort with, and whether that be profit maximizing or whether that be certain activities that you don't personally agree with, then of course one has a duty to one's own self to say, okay, I'm not comfortable with this. Now, if you're in a position to do something about it and influence that decision, then obviously please do. But if you're unable to, then you should obviously make the right choices for your own well-being. I would say, with a servant's heart, if the master that you feel to carry on that thought is somehow no longer appropriate or is acting in a way that doesn't meet your values, then you're under no compulsion to stay, right? So I think this is the factoring we all have to do, and it varies, and it's a very personal thing, I think. And just taking the money, sometimes people soon start to realize that that's not enough if you're not getting other satisfaction. So the famous hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yep.
still rings true today. That yes, you may have maybe employed gainfully, maybe receiving obviously a good salary, but above and beyond that, are you achieving or receiving the other nurturing that you expect to receive that would matter to you to keep you growing in that organization? Because a significant pay rise or a bonus is only good on the day, and after a week, a month, a year, any thrill of that is long gone.
Yeah, I like that. That's so well said, and it's got to be personal to everybody. And you've told us some stories already. Why is storytelling, and why are you such a good storyteller, and why is it important in business?
Well, it's very kind of you to say. People often tell me that I'm a good storyteller. Why is it important in business? Well, it's something I learned early on in my career, and I worked in management consulting in various roles in large organizations. I worked on both sides of the table, I should say. I worked in business and in industry. So I've been a customer of consultancies and software companies, as well as working for software companies. I've seen it from all sides. One important thing that stands out, I learned early on, even from my early school days in England, was every day we had a tradition where our headmaster, the principal, would read either a Bible reading or would tell us a particular story. And then we would discuss that. That was a daily ritual, and that was the first kind of exposure to tell a story and extract value from that. And as you get older, you realize that the receptiveness of people to stories is far more powerful, even in a corporate sense, than just facts, figures, and PowerPoint slides. Now, again, facts, figures, PowerPoint slides, and the rest of it are important. However, putting the right frame around that and being able to tell a story around it makes your delivery far more powerful. And so this was, a technique which I learned and enhanced in business consulting, and then as I progressed up the corporate ladder, speaking to business leaders, CEOs, managers, or anyone across the organization, you find it's much more easier and to convince someone when you tell them a story that has a clear basis in fact, but also then helps them relate to the challenge. And then, of course, you have the facts and the figures, you have the PowerPoint slides, right? That's the science behind the argument that you're making. And as long as people can see that, yes, they understand that. But does it connect with you emotionally, right? So to give you an example, what I do even in my current role is work with business leaders to really focus on what it is that they're trying to achieve, right? So I work for a software company. Of course, I have software solutions. I have all sorts of really cool gadgets, all sorts of cool innovations. You name it, we have it. AI, generative AI, all sorts of things that we can do, which are quite incredible. But to be honest, you're talking to a business leader or trying to influence someone who's heading up a department in a particular function. Let's be frank, there are alternatives also available. We're not the only people in the world with technology, of course, and they know that. So the way to connect with them is obviously to understand their issue, number one, their challenges, and help build a narrative around that, which is a story. And so a story may start, as an example, is that let's imagine where you would be in 3 years' time, what it is that you want to achieve, right? Let's now explore that scenario, right? And this is what you want to achieve, right? Absolutely. You can So
Yep.
if you tell a story, we start here, this will end up in 2 to 3 years' time. You let them tell that story. Okay, great. Now, let's work back to that story and understand, for example, what are some of the challenges or issues that you have that are limiting your choices to get there? What is stopping you? What are the frustrations or limitations? And from that, then you can start to diagnose how we can help. And then you can say, okay, my organization, we have particular tools, technologies, etc., software that can help you here, here, and here to help you overcome those challenges. And when you're telling that story, right, this is quite important. Your target, for want of a better phrase, your customer has now bought into the fact that yes, they're at the end of that journey, but understood that journey has some challenges, right? When it comes back to framing as a story, this comes back to the classical hero's journey. You may have seen that famous circle. We explain the hero's journey, whether it's Luke Skywalker or anyone else, right? Anyone wants to imagine that they are their own Luke Skywalker, right? We are going through our own challenges. We have a vision. We want to go through that. There are certain obstacles to achieve that. And then someone comes that will offer you, be your Obi-Wan, for example, to give you that hope, give you that direction, give you that training, give you those tools, right? Whether that tool be a lightsaber or a PowerPoint slide, right? Or a piece of software, if used correctly, ultimately is down to you, right? Obi-Wan's not doing your work for you. You have to do it yourself. But you use those tools correctly, you can achieve those goals. So you start to frame it in such a way that starts to build rapport and for you to be memorable. I say fundamentally, and finally, sorry if I've gone on too long, but the tests I often use in a meeting before and after, before I go into one, is how will that person remember me the day after, or in the evening, or the next morning when they come into the office, or when they see my name again on the email, right? It wasn't that I was wearing a silly hat or that I spilled coffee on the table or whatever, although I might have done those things. It's more so that I said something that resonated. And that might be the only key takeaway, not the 25, 30 PowerPoint slides, not the whiz bang architecture slides, not the story about my amazing product or my talking robot, although I have all those things. It's actually what you will give me at the end of it that delivers for me, right? This is what makes sense, right? So you take the hero's journey again, for Luke Skywalker, it's the ultimate affirmation of achieving freedom for his people and reconciling with his father. Everything else is a journey to get there, but doing that is something that only he can do, but he's given the skills and the help along the way to achieve it by many people. And so I'd count myself as one of those who's helping people achieve their goals.
Well, you just help people achieve a sales goal there, because that could have been recorded as a sales tip right there, because you nailed everything with that. What is your superpower as a servant?
Yeah, I think it is having empathy with the customer, right? This is very important. So I learned early on in my consulting career that, sometimes I was going against the grain even of the organizational or selling techniques that we were given, which is, go tell the customer A, B, C, D, and this is it, this is what we'll do, and here's a price card and all this kind of stuff. Okay, great. But actually, the conversation should start at a completely different position, right? Start with humility and start with empathy. Now, I happen to be coming to meet a customer, or the customer's coming to meet me, or a potential customer. And yes, I'm wearing the badge of a prestigious organization. And that in of itself, okay, gives you a certain cachet or a certain weight in the conversation. I happen to represent this organization. However, I'm acting with humility because the fact is, and the person knows, that I don't have all the answers for everything, and it could be a very complex problem. So I act with humility to say, okay, from what you've explained, I have other colleagues in the organization definitely help you with that area, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You have experts in these areas that can help solve your problem. But empathy is, let me understand the challenge that you face, and let's dig into those a bit deeper. It's not that I have something to sell. Let me understand first what it is, and then let me find a way how I can help. And if it's not me personally, I can find someone in the organization who has that specific expertise, right? So in a business context, I work in the technology space, and often the question should not be, is that I need to buy or acquire this bit of software, or I need this, or I need that. The question really is to ask the 3 whys or 5 whys. Let's understand that why. because a customer may come to you to say, I want to buy this software. Okay, great. More than happy to sell it to you, no problem. I can fill in a sales order. However, let's understand a bit better why, right? So, what is the fundamental motivation? What you were trying to achieve? How would you measure success? Does it actually make sense? Are there better ways to approach this problem, right? And it's not necessarily upselling, but it's best to understand, okay, actually from what you're describing, you actually face some wider challenges. And actually, let me tell you that based on my experience of customers in your industry, right? These are some of the wider challenges that we're seeing. These are some of the trends that we're seeing. And therefore, the recommendation we tend to make is not only what you've suggested, but you also should consider 1, 2, and 3. Or that what you're suggesting actually probably isn't the right way to go. You might want to consider this as an alternative, which will put you on a stronger path than just doing that, right? If you just want to swipe the credit card and download the software, whatever it may be, no problem, right? We can do that. But let's talk with empathy, right? Let's understand each other. And that, as I said, you're talking with a servant's heart, engaging in the right way with humility and empathy as a superpower, then creates that connection. And that connection can be durable, right? It will then create a long-term relationship, not a transactional one. So if that's a superpower, I would like to think that I have it.
I just put it in the superpower category. It is there. It's in the category of super. And I like what you did is you did the why before the price. They have no idea, or they have the idea if they're going to swipe their credit card. But when you're doing that, you're not talking price at all. You're talking needs, pain points, and that's sales 101 that a lot of people don't do, correct?
Yes, people miss that, right? Another analogy that I use, and for a few years when I came to Dubai, actually, I worked for a retail conglomerate who were really a great, fantastic team to work with, and I was working with and leading the retail technology strategy. So how do we move from a traditional bricks and mortar to an omni-channel experience to online, which is still relatively new for this market back then. But this conglomerate represented a lot of very prestigious global brands like Gucci, Armani, Jimmy Choo, Bloomingdale's, Harvey Nichols. Also had automotive in the portfolio, Ferrari, Maserati. So I had exposure to not only those brands and their products, but also those companies themselves, right? To understand their values, to say, okay, how can we create sales opportunity for them, right? Because we're effectively franchising their operation of their brand, setting up in this region, right? So in Dubai and beyond. So to do that, again, requires, that sensitivity, right? To their brand and how they want it to be treated if they're trusting you with it. This is very important. No one's going to trust you with Ferrari or Maserati if you're going to present product poorly. And so the analogy I often use is that, yes, if someone comes into as it was then, or the Ferrari showroom and asks for a Ferrari, yes, of course, we can always show them one straight away. Yes, it's here. But by the way, did you know there's a 6-month waiting list for any new order? What we have here is basically what we have for demonstration purposes. But if you want to buy it, then it has to go on order. It'll take 6 months. Let's understand your needs a bit more, right? Which one do you want? And if you are a Ferrari aficionado, you'll know straight away, right? You'll have a strong feel for the product, and there are various categories and various levels and certain performance characteristics that may matter to you, right? If you're just there just to buy a Ferrari as a badge, say, I don't know, I just want a Ferrari because I just want to look cool. Well, there might be a suitable product, but actually there also might be other alternatives that might suit you better, right? Maserati might work better for you. You want a drop top or whatever you want. So you have to diagnose the customer in the right way, even in luxury business, right? Of course, people who are willing to spend money will spend money. Yeah. But again, if you're establishing a rapport and making sure you understand the needs of the customer, I can make valid suggestions. Actually, if you're looking for performance, this particular model or this particular line makes better sense for you, right? You get more performance out of that. But of course, by the way, you can't drive it on the street like that. But if you want ultimate performance, yes, we can set it up for a track racing, or we can invite you to come to the test center, test track in Italy, with the Ferrari team. You can do whatever you want there, etc. You know, the different ways to impress the customer, right? Otherwise, they could go to another lot, another dealer, just simply, again, swipe the credit card, buy the car, and they've lost all of that value-added conversation and relationship. That means the next time they think of Ferrari and talk to Ferrari to their friends, they'll say, aha, I know the guy, I know the people, they understand me, they can make the best recommendations. That's why I want to buy from them and not from somebody else, right? So this makes a huge difference.
Yeah, referrals are a big thing that happens when you build a relationship, like you just said. We're running out of time here, but I do want to ask this question because we talked about your daughter. If you had a magical, and you've been around the world, you've been to New York, we've talked about Dubai, you grew up in the UK, so you've visited, so you might, I don't know if an expert's the right word, but have an understanding. If you had a magic wand, what are 3 things you would change in the world?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, from the point of view of let's keep the focus on business. I think number one, it'd be great. You know, I think if everyone could act with empathy in business, I think that's one highlight I think I've made today. You know, that as colleagues, as customers, as competitors, we all acted with empathy. And I think definitely that would make a huge difference to what we do. I think secondly, adopting this storytelling model would make certainly our lives a lot more easier, right? Yes, we want to talk about product and our latest gadget and what we're selling, but please make a story out of it, because we consume stories all the time. We pay for it. We pay for Netflix. We pay for Apple TV. We pay for Amazon Prime, whatever. We'll sit there happily and consume that because we're consuming stories, right? Why can't I consume everything else that I buy in a similarly entertaining way, right? That would certainly improve our day-to-day experience, right? And then finally, I would really wish that everyone took on board, you know, your promise of acting with a servant's heart. So again, engaging with humility. That's not to separate. You should not. You should have pride in what you do. You should lead with firmness where necessary, but have that core humility in what you do, and then people will engage and follow you.
Sammar, I want to thank you for being on. I am humbled by listening to you and the notes I took. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Most welcome. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And you can see he's a servant's heart, and that's what we have on here. And it could be life too. So everything Sammar said, you could take it into your personal life as well. This just doesn't always fall into business. Thank you again for listening and watching. We hope to see you on the next episode.